Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's card I've got some watercolor paper, some lawn fawn on the beach and a couple of the stitched hillside borders, as well as some brushed corduroy, tea dye, salty ocean and can't remember the colour there but a couple of blues. And I basically took some watercolor paper and lined up the dyes where I wanted those horizons or those like the sand dunes to be, and that's why this one looks a little funny, because the last piece will be the sky piece, so all of it will be completely flat, so I'm not layering one piece on top of another. It's going to be sort of like a puzzle piece, if that makes any sense. It'll make more sense hopefully in a minute. So I'm just using the tea dye and then the brushed corduroy just to give that more sand like look over the top here. And I used watercolor paper. I experimented this week with all the videos whether it was using watercolor paints to color things in, using watercolor paper to ink things. I've done all sorts of things this week, so you'll hopefully see some of that. Some of it I've already done just because of time, but yeah, it's nice to have an experimental kind of week. So and because it's sort of summer and beachy and that, I wanted this sort of soft look in the background. So I've got some salty ocean here that I'm going along the edge just to deepen it, and that's going to be on kind of like the horizon, I guess, of the sky. And then I will also spritz in some water, of course, because I can't help myself. And being watercolor paper, it will take it better than a regular cardstock. So sometimes I'll still do that on a regular cardstock just to get some texture in the background, but for these, you know, it is watercolor paper, so it makes sense to do things like this sort of thing, because it will cope with that whole you know, with the moisture from the water. Can't talk today, obviously. So instead of mopping it up once it reacts, I am just going to dry it with a heat tool, and that way you get this sort of tone on tone kind of look rather than white splotches coming up. And then what I did was I still sort of used a paper towel just to get any excess moisture that might still be there. And now I'm going to just get some tape going on the back, and I'm not filling all the gaps in because I wasn't sure if I wanted to tape tuck little pieces behind any of these areas, so I decided to leave some gaps so that was easy to do if I wanted to do that. And then just prepping all these because, you know, I think this is probably the shortest video I've ever done. And then I have a piece of it's like a grape, I think it's Grapefruit Grove by Stampin' Up. I don't think they carry this color anymore, but can you see that it's basically like you just line them and butt them up against each other, and it creates this sort of flat but dimensional looking piece. And that's the front of the card, but because it is wider than the card, I'm just going to trim the edges just to get rid of those excess pieces, and then it'll be the same size as the card. This card isn't quite A2 size, it's sort of my version of it, and I've done a video on that before. It's sort of my version of an A2, so it's about 5.5 by 4 1/8, or something like that. So yeah, it's basically like an A4, sorry, an A5, but cut down to 5.5 wide, if that makes any sense. It's too early here. So, anyway, so I have all these pieces that I cut out using my scan and cut, and I colored them in, or painted them, I guess, watercolored them. They're also on some these are on the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, and I used the smooth side just to get that sort of smooth texture. But I used markers for this, so I used some Stampin' Up markers and some, I think I used 1 or 2 Tim Holtz markers, because I wanted that sort of watercolor look, but I didn't want to spend days with, you know, markers can be quite quick and easy to do, so I just thought they would be an easier thing to do from a time point of view. But it's whatever you have. If you have, you know, a proper paint palette, use that. If you have markers, use that. You know, whatever floats your boat. So I just I had a rough idea of where I wanted these guys to go, and I stamped, like I say, with things like shells or flowers or things like that, I always stamp at least 3. So I've done that with the shells, but with some of the other pieces like the ball, the beach ball, the suntan lotion and the cocktail, I just stamped 1 of each of those, and then I've just decided where I want to put all these little pieces, and this is where you can create some cool scenes. I love doing things like this. So and then of course my umbrellas and the beach ball had to be in rainbow. I just thought it made most sense. But I used the colors. I had the 2017 to 19 and the 2018 to 20 in colors in the markers. Those are the only Stampin' Up markers I have, and so I used those. And the 2018 to 2020 markers actually have this almost rainbow effect. So they're basically the colors on the beach ball and the umbrellas. Those are the colors that are in there. And then some of the other colors from the other set I used on, like the beach tails, the shells, even on the did I use on the SPF? I'm not sure. No, that must have been the yellow. Anyway, also within the stamp set you get these little sunglasses. So I had to put them on. I just thought they were the funniest thing. So I just used some glue dots to stick those on. Super easy. You can use any adhesive, any small adhesive, or, you know, use a bit of wet glue if you need to. And then of course I needed to get my sentiment on. Lately I haven't been putting too many sentiments on the outside of my cards because they're so full of everything else from a scene point of view. So a lot of the time I won't bother with that, but at the moment I had to I had to put it seize the day. It's kind of apt at the moment. So there you have it. And I also, when I cut this out, I used, because I'd stamped everything so close to each other, my Scan and Cut wanted to cut into everything else, because normally I'll have a little white border. So this one cut right up against the edge. Not sure it's my favorite thing, so maybe I'll just leave more space next time. But I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you all seize the day. Till next time, guys. Bye.